Hello learners, welcome to the course on ARPIT in Library and Information Science. I will be talking on preparation of transformed library in 21st century. The talk will have two parts. The part 1 would cover changing landscape, challenges and opportunities. If you look at libraries today, libraries are surrounded with disruptive technology. This is a term that was coined by Clayton Christensen, and the theory was proposed first in the year 2000. He said that why is it that mainstream, well established, well managed and successful firms fail when newcomers selling their inferior but modern products and scalable technology enter the market. This was the basic concept that he came up with. If you look at the disruptive technology that surrounds a library, we find that every function of the library is surrounded by disruptive technology, be it journals, be it books, be it catalog, be it video collections, whatever you think of that a library can have, alternate is available already in the market. So, which essentially means that libraries are surrounded by what is called disruptive technology, and we have to deal with disruptive technology. How do we keep the library as a place where people come for knowledge is something that we have to debate for, argued for and prepare ourselves for. Now, if you look at the disruptive technology and how they are disrupting status quo, we can see that after 200 years of publishing, Encyclopedia Britannica was sold to Jacob Safra, a banker from Lebanon, in the year 2000. Safra invested additional money to cover the losses and revamp the business, and from 2012 onwards the print version of Encyclopedia Britannica was discontinued. There was a time we couldn't think of a library without Encyclopedia Britannica, but it is now obsolete. Nobody thinks about Encyclopedia Britannica. In 2011, the bookstore, the famous chain of bookstores called Borders, was liquidated. In 2012, Kodak filed for bankruptcy. Nokia was sold off to Microsoft in 2014, and print version of Chemical Abstract, Index Medicus and several other indexing and abstracting service discontinued their print versions. Now, look at other sphere of works in the library that are now disruptive. Now, look at the collection development. The libraries were specialized for its acquiring its print collection, books and journals, which is now e-books and e-journals. So, not much expertise that are required, or the intensity that was required for selection of printed books is not required that much in books, e-books and e-journals. Compiling bibliographies, that was one of the basic job that library used to do, especially we used to have documentation centers which used to compile bibliography. Now, it is replaced with web based bibliography and full text databases. We were subscribing to online services, search services like Dialog, STN, BSN search, that all job is taken over by web based bibliographic and full text databases. Now, coming to reference services is one of the aspects that has been very badly affected. It has almost become obsolete because of other services like or Ask Jeeves or Just Answer or Live Person. So, these kind of web based expert systems are available where people can pose their question and get an answer. Quora is one of those that we use very frequently. Reference collection. Now, reference collection are replaced by online reference contents. Credo reference is one of the example. And technical processing. Library used to spend a lot of time on processing book, processing journals, keeping it shelf ready. Now, with e-books and e-journals, libraries do not have to spend their times on e-books and e-journals, because books are already processed, they are available for a collection, it is accessible to you as well as to the users without any additional processing that is required. So, one can say that of course, disruptive technology is affecting library, but is it affecting other walks of life also? Yes, it is. Like let us see, Daimler Benz managing director of Mercedes-Benz. He said, our competitors are no longer other car companies, but Tesla, Google, Apple and Amazon. And all these companies are not automobile companies. They are basically software based company, but they are challenging a well established automobile company because of their what they call automobile on a wheel or automobile on a computer, completely new technologies that are replacing or they are challenging automobile industry. So, it is said that software will disrupt most of the traditional industry in next 5 to 10 years. Let us look at the examples of these disruptions that are happening in the industry, other industry. Automobile industries like I already mentioned Tesla, Google and other companies, they are challenging existing automobile cars. Now, they are coming with self-driving cars where the drivers are not required, and it appears that the accident would be lesser by 1 to the car accident would be rare. Right now, there are deaths about 1.2 million per year, which would not be there if the automobile cars are autonomous cars are fully implemented, and then the number of cars that are required would be lesser by 90 to 95%. This is an estimate, and those that are affected is taxi services, yellow cars and other, but of course, car dealers, licensing authorities, insurance companies, parking spaces, they are going to be disrupted. Transportation on demand, we all use Ola and Uber, but these are the transportation company who do not own a single car, but they are a big challenge to yellow cabs and taxi services. We are just a platform, but the platform is challenging an existing yellow cab and taxi services. Law and justice expert system, IBM Watson is the example, where it can give a better legal advice than couple of advocates put together. So, their accuracy rate is 90% compared to 70% that is given by experts. So, lawyers and law firms is a challenge. Hotel industries, Airbnb, which is just a platform, is challenging the entire hotel industries because they pool the spaces available in individual house and offer at a much lower cost. Airbnb again does not have a, they do not own any property, but they offer it to individual directly through the platform that they have prepared. Medical sciences and healthcares, Tricorder X is a device that can analyze 54 biomarkers and identify nearly every disease. So, hospitals, diagnostics, labs, they are all being challenged. There are other example in manufacturing, 3D manufacturing, 3D printing. Now, you can print an entire building using 3D printing devices. So, it is a challenge to the entire manufacturing and civil construction engineering. Job market, IT and its application is a challenge. It appears that 70 to 80% of the job will disappear in the next 20 years, but there may be another sets of job that would be available. Robotics and robots are affecting all fields of life. Education, we are now recording for ARPIT. There are courses available for SWAYAM. There will be time when one can earn an entire degree online. So, if that comes, education sector, job involving education sector would be a challenge. Likewise, there is a technology called brain computer interaction, which is a hype on Gartner's life cycle, where the brain would connect directly to the computer and learn what it wants. So, it will pick up selectively and learn what it wants. That would be a big challenge. The entire education system would be in a challenge. So, there was a time when S. Radhakrishnan, the President of India, said a university is a string of building around a library. Is that correct now? Well, how do the users access information? Let us look at that. Although libraries are seen as providers of reliable information, but most users start their searches with the search engines, typically Google, and not with the library portals. They prefer to browse online. Of course, they may take a print to read. The fee based contents are losing its added edge, value added edge, and wikis are being used even for scientific information by experts. Functional roles of libraries and domain knowledge of the users and librarians drive striking difference between information seeking behavior, like we would see in the example now. Like before internet, libraries were the most important publicly available information resources, but is it true now? Now, there was a question asked to the librarians as well as to the researcher. In the surveys, the librarians and researcher were asked the name of top scientific and medical search sources that they use or are aware of. The difference in the answer that came from researcher and librarians was startlingly different. The researcher said Google, Yahoo, PubMed. The same question, the librarian's response was Science Direct, Web of Science, Medline, JSTOR and Springer. So, the striking difference is that researcher came up with the answer which were basically search engines open to everybody or PubMed which is open to everybody, but the librarians answered for resources that are well established, that are authentic and that are basically consist of peer reviewed journals. Now, if you look at how people start their search, so this is basically a survey conducted by Perception for Libraries and Information Resources, a book published by OCLC in the year 2005. The answer was that 89% of the users start their search from search engines, whereas only 2% come to the library portal. The same survey was conducted again in 2010. The number of users that go onto Google and other search engines has increased to 92% and library portal stays at 2% only. So, the survey that was repeated after 5 years gives the similar result, or rather the use of Google, YouTube and other resources have increased. This is because of the convenience, simplicity and social coolness that have driven the explosive growth and that have driven the users to these kind of sources. If you look at the electronic journals, the recent Ulrich Web Global Serial Directory lists about 3 lakh serials, and out of that 70,000 serials are already available online, and there are about 16,000 serials that have only electronic format and print format is completely missing. And of course, there are about 11,000 open access journals. Likewise, books. Now, in 2011, Amazon reported that purchase of electronic books or e-books had surpassed those of print books. That was in 2011. Of course, sales of physical books increased by 4% in the UK last year, that was 2017, while e-book sales shrank by the same amount. So, it is like going up and down, but trends are there that e-books are doing well. In fact, ever since the Kindle was released in 2007, digital sales have consistently increased by double digital figures. A number of analysts have been proclaiming that within a few years digital books will overtake print books, which has already happened in 2011, although we are seeing lots of ups and downs. In fact, John Fallon, CEO of Pearson, said we are now over the digital tipping point. Our annual revenue comes from digital sales. Half the revenue comes from the digital sale. So, we have decided that it is time to flick the switch and how we primarily make and create our products. So, they have already decided they were going to stop the print and continue with the digital forms. So, he said students would only be able to rent physical books from now on from their libraries, and they would only be updated much less frequently. So, they are making it a point to see that the student buy digital copies and do not depend on the print copies in any way, which they are going to discontinue. So, Pearson hopes that this move will make more students to buy its e-books, e-textbooks, which will be updated continuously. So, if you look at the rise of eBooks, this was a kind of a forecast that was done for 2010 and 14. The eBooks CAGR, that is cumulative annual growth rate, was plus 40% in comparison to print books, which was minus 5%, and in comparison to industry it was only minus 3%. This was from 2010 to 14. The revenue for eBooks, it is forecasted that it will grow from 13 million to about 15 millions, and cumulative annual growth rate would increase by 3.3%, and user penetration, which is about 12.9 now, would increase to 14.5%. So, this is a graph that shows increase in sales of eBooks from 2010 to 2017, which has increased from 69 million to 266 million in 2017. So, that tells a lot about how people are reacting to electronic books. This graph shows that Google, which is in a way outsider to the library, scanned about 15 million books from 3 major libraries in US and make them available on the web. Of course, he did not want to do a charity, they have a revenue model for it. So, libraries are not the most relevant sources of eBooks, and the gap keeps widening because Google is adding more collection to its eBooks project. Now, this project, when it was considered by the president of Michigan University, he said it will take 1000 years to us for digitizing 7 million volumes that they have in University of Michigan. The actual time taken by Google to digitize these 7 million books was only 6 years. So, they have digitized 15 million books, including 7 million books that were available in University of Michigan. So, we have a great partner, although his intentions are not charity, his intention is not to reach out to the people, but he has a commercial model. So, it looks like a great service, but then there is a commerce beside it. Let us talk about assumption about the libraries. David W. Lewis, Dean of IUPUI University, Indianapolis, gave or predicted about 5 assumptions about the library which people have. One of the assumption is libraries are means and not the end. Libraries are means where the subsidy that is given to the libraries by an institute or by society in case of public library is a mean which they give, that we buy books, we buy journals, we buy knowledge sources and make it available to the users. But if the new sources or the new means of subsidy becomes available, library may not be relevant anymore. So, when the new means which are cheaper, which are more effective comes, library may not be relevant at that time. Assumption 2 is disruptive technology are disrupting libraries. We have already talked about it. So, I will rather skip it at this stage. Assumption 3 is real changes requires real changes. So, we are facing a technological turmoil, a transformation. So, the real changes requires that we make real changes, the minor deviations or adjustment are not going to work. We have to use today's technology to tackle today's problem. We cannot use yesterday's technology or yesterday's means or techniques to tackle today's problems. You have to find new ways to handle the problem. Assumption 4 is we have a window of opportunity. The libraries are given respect, they are considered as hub of the academic institution, but we have to develop our means, we have to develop ways, we have to develop new skills and models to come up with the new technology to deal with the problem that we have and use the opportunity that society has given to us. Assumption 5 is fund available to libraries or institutions are limited, which is a fact. They are very much limited, and we have to find means as to how, what best we can do within the funds that are made available to the library. You can see that there are 273% increase from 1986 to 2003 in the cost of journals and cost of books. So, the funds that are available to the libraries are not indefinite. So, we will have to do something to make the two ends meet within the budget that the libraries have. So, let us look at what libraries do to be more relevant now that they could not do in the past, and what they can do in the future that they could not do in the past. This is a WhatsApp joke that has been traveling around. I will just like to go through it. The girl said to her dad, I have fallen in love with a boy who is so cute, he is so far away from me. I am in IIT Delhi and he is in MIT. We became friends on Facebook, talked on WhatsApp, finally saw each other on Skype, and he proposed to me on Google Duo. He said to his father, I need your blessing, Daddy, I want to marry him. The father said, okay, I suggest you get married on Twitter, have fun on Tango, get your kids from eBay, deliver them through Dropbox, and oh yes, if you get bored of him, beta, sell him off on OLX. So, this is a joke which is basically on the WhatsApp, but it shows that how our society is changing. So, librarians need to change themselves to be relevant for libraries that are coming in 21st century. This is a picture of giant panda. The giant panda is nearing extinction because giant panda diet consists of almost entirely of bamboos. Since bamboos contains very little nutritional value, the panda must eat 12 to 38 kg per day to survive. The population of giant panda had come down, but it is now increasing again because giant panda has adapted himself. The librarians need to do adaptation, and adaptation is what we will be the librarians are expected to do. So, thanks a lot for the time being, but then I will continue with the second part of this talk, where I will be talking about new strategies, roles and functions that a librarian must be doing in 21st century libraries. Thanks a lot